recognized that there was tremendous work done in 2010, and this work worked to restructure it so the caps were diminished. And our goal now is to see them eliminated. As stated, the recommendation and presentation that we will share includes a change in the structure of the final portion of the bond. And it's designed to maintain the current tax rate without an increase to taxpayers. It's also designed to lower the debt ratios, as mentioned in the item, and to decrease the future interest. That was a great concern as we looked at the two presentations, in a way that can both benefit the students of our district and in a very fiscally responsible manner. So recognizing that, there's some information that we would like to share with you. I would just like to state that I appreciate that this board has listened to all sides of this issue, and I really look forward to your collective guidance as we move forward on this item. So if I could, I would like to ask Tim Cody to please come up, and he is going to share some information regarding the proposed bond sale. We also have bond counsel here if there are specific questions regarding any of the comments that you may have as well. We have Meredith Johnson here.
Good evening, thank you, Dr. Meyer. I believe a lot of this information we've been over in a number of sessions again, as Dr. Meyer stated. Some quick goals. I'd like to share again some of our overall goals, again some of our accomplishments, the remaining needs, and then some specific lists on what we could do with potentially with either a $38.5 million issuance or the full $77 million issuance. Real quickly, and I can read through this if everyone would like. We wanted to include some of the bond language, the ballot language on what was in the original ballot. There seems to have been some questions during the study sessions, what was included and what was not included, so we thought it might be helpful to reiterate the actual ballot language. When you went deeper into the resolution, there was a lot more data with a lot more project lists that were included in that, as well as some of the overall goals that the district was trying to meet in terms of priorities that were established by the board at that time. They had grouped projects by priority based on what the site had given. We did not include that for the length of time. Real quickly, an overview of what we've done. I'm not going to reiterate some of the things that Dr. Myers talked about. We have, pending a determination from the board, we have continued on as if we would complete all of the scope that the board has assigned us to do. So pending the decision from the board, we are in progress on all of the remaining priority 1 items that were previously approved by the board and the voters in 2010. So some of these things will be affected based on the actions that the board takes tonight. But we've continued on with all of those items as was previously designated by the board. A couple of quick notes on this. There's a couple of these scopes of works that were accelerated, completed locks and door hardware. Those were completed on an accelerated schedule based on some incidents that occurred nationwide. There is some door hardware that is still remaining that would need to be completed. And again, we're well within the replacement of our telephone systems. We have 1 telephone system that is remaining at Shore Acres, and that will be the last system.
Mr. Cody, the ones that are listed in progress, are these listed based on a timeline or expenditure or priority, or is there any significance to the listing of the in progress items?
The list is, I would say alphabetically, but it is not. What it is is what it is a combination of the first year modernization. So going way back, the board had set a schedule on how we were going to move through the district. We want to go through these schools first, then these schools, then these schools. So that list has been out there for a number of times. In 2012, the board had asked us to accelerate the entire program. So we took some of what would have happened in what we were calling a group 2, and we moved those up into group 1. So we went from about 8 schools to about 10 schools per year. And all of that work from, which would have been the second year of modernization, was moved up into the first group. Half of that group stayed in group 2, and then we moved portions of group 3 in. So we took a 5-year modernization program. We've scheduled that on a 4-year basis. All of these items included on this list occur in all of the remaining groups. With some exceptions, some of the schools may not require playground replacement and some of those items. So the scope goes across the full 4-year spectrum. And again, this is just the final list. We'll get to some of these, the last 3 items specifically. The items that were de-scoped, I just want to provide some clarification to that. These were items that were removed by board action. The board had said we're going to not do this work, and part of that was used to fund what we know as the high school enhancement program. So the centralized irrigation system, the classroom, interior classroom lighting and exterior soft lighting, that was de-scoped previously by board action. So those are easy items where we can say the entire scope of work was taken out of the program at that time. It's still a priority program, but we haven't committed funding to that, and the budgets were adjusted to reflect that funding that was previously available but then moved.
You remember what year that was de-scoped?
I believe most of that was 2012 in conjunction with the high school enhancement program. There were some monies that were shifted around.
I don't want to jump ahead, but I sort of am in your slides when I went through them. The in-progress projects linked later to the 77 million remaining bonds, which we're considering whether or not to sell. So some of those in-progress projects are actually impacted by this if we choose not to sell 77 million, correct?
That would be correct.
As I was looking later in the slides where some of these in progress is still dependent upon the additional funding.
That would be correct. Due to the timing of the board action, we would be extremely pressed for time to roll out and implement some of these improvements. If the board had said, we're moving forward with the whole scope of work, we wouldn't have time to catch up with the board action. So,
But some of the schools, while I know we're hearing a request for which schools are actually impacted with this funding, some of these schools may not have window replacement, may not have restroom renovation should the 77 million not be sold.
that is correct.
We just aren't stating which schools those might be.
That is correct. And as I get into a little bit more detail, I will tell you, even at this slide, all of those impacts would occur across the board. They're going to be equitable across the board, again, with the exception of items such as a playground equipment replacement. That wouldn't normally occur at some of the high schools or middle schools. Again, what are our goals? Provide safe, accessible, flourishing educational environments. As Dr. Meyer pointed out, eliminate CAF, look at other forms of possibly doing some of this work, such as deferred maintenance when appropriate, and to provide a cohesive plan for ongoing work that considers sustainability. And obviously, we are going to follow all of the legal obligations. I'd like to go through some of the quick highlights, and these are in program order rather than in site-specific order. So when the board moved over money from classroom lighting to fund the high school enhancement program, the sites and their site councils took advantage of that opportunity and took care of a lot of the things that they would like to have seen on the high school campuses. This included the high school campuses, and the board also allocated money for all of the non-comprehensive schools. So sites like Olympic got additional buildings, Gateway got an additional building, Summit got a new sign.